Hi, I'm Dave.
And I'm Matt.
And welcome to Sofa Reviews. Today we're watching In the Name of the King, Two Worlds.
Released in 2011, it's Uwe Boll's follow-up to In the Name of the King, a dungeon siege tale.
And because we reviewed that film last year, we're somehow contractually obliged to review this one.
We cut to a woman being chased in the forest by some assassins.
She kills them easily and then runs off into some tedious narration from Dolph Lundgren, while also explaining that they're in Canada.
We then see Dolph playing Granger, who's teaching kids at a martial arts school.
Which seemingly just means he shows off in front of the kids and doesn't let them do anything.
One of them continues to go after him, which only serves to prove that he's a major.
I'm retired.
No one asked.
Later we see Dolph all alone at home in his really big house.
As a lone man, apparently haunted by the memories of war, he decides to have a drink and then talk to a picture of his friends. Clearly moving on then.
It's meant to be some sort of anniversary, presumably to mark the death of his friends.
But this is far too sad and solemn for Uwe Boll, so he gets attacked.
After being too drunk to shoot straight, he goes downstairs and ends up helping the girl from the start deal with her attackers.
They jump through a portal to the other world where someone tries to steal Dolph's kill. Oh, and the woman got stabbed.
Soldiers show up to drag Dolph off to a really cheap-looking castle.
Remember who you're meant to be. Remember that you must return to this place. It was my prophecy to die for you.
Damn it, this woman talks more now that she's dead.
After being dragged in front of the king, he reveals that Dolph is the chosen one.
My soldiers were to ensure that you were not taken by the Dark One at the Enchanted Place.
Well, of course, the Dark Ones, in the Enchanted Place, at the Anointed Time, threatening the honour quest of the Chosen One for the Holy Relic, from the genius that wrote Blood Rain, the Third Reich.
After a dull chat with the king, it's revealed that Allard, the king's guard, doesn't trust Dolph.
I do not share my king's devotion to the prophecy, yet I pledge to honor the crown.
He then gets shown to his whore. I'm in his room, but there's a whore there.
After a day of showing off to kids, he's too tired to spend any time with her, and the doctor shows up.
A wound on his head and his arm.
Yes, whore. Tell the doctor how to do her job.
Dolph gets patched up and goes to sleep, only to be woken up by another message from the dead woman.
I bet she thought dying early on in this film would be a good way to get out of it, but clearly not.
Dolph wakes up to the prostitute trying to kill him, but she somehow manages to stab herself instead.
My wound was fatal.
So, no chance of that sex you were on about earlier?
So we then see him have yet another really dull chat with the king, who explains why Jason Statham isn't in this movie.
He also explains that because Granger is the Chosen One, he has to kill the Holy Mother, the leader of the Dark Ones.
So Dolph accepts his quest and then finds the doctor in his room.
In the time beyond, you can reaffix a man's arm.
If the conditions are right.
This information pleases me.
Wow, that's easy. You can just chat this woman up with vague discussions of medical treatments.
Dolph gets dragged off yet again, this time to see their oracle, but he has a nice chat with Allard first.
Allard, do you date a lot? I mean, do people actually like hanging out with you? I mean, female people. Or are you into that whole, sword and sweaty sandals thing? And the Turkish bath?
I just can't understand this guy's thick Canadian accent.
They have their rambling prophecy and learn nothing of value.
The next day, and the expedition heads off, almost instantly running into a battle scene.
They're attacked by the Dark Ones, but it goes really well for Dolph and his new friends.
Hide behind that tree.
Oh, hide! But I thought standing in the middle of a battlefield would be the best option.
One Dark One happens to get his chance to kill Dolph, but just becomes starstruck.
I passed knowing that I was bested by the Chosen One.
By bested, I of course mean I didn't kill you when there was literally nothing stopping me.
This leads Dolph to come up with conspiracy theories to try and explain why the Dark Ones are acting this way.
I think the Holy Mother wants me alive.
And predictably, he is of course right, but when this is explained later on in the film, it's painfully stupid.
Anyway, we cut to the Oracle getting killed.
I have told no one of your plans. I have uttered not a word.
Well, you probably should have then, you silly tart.
It turns out it was the king that killed her, which is a really obvious twist.
The next morning they get attacked again, this time having to run away.
Which leads to Allard deciding that he will sacrifice himself so Dolph can escape, but has time to give him some words of encouragement first.
I'm not leaving you here.
I shall never forget you, Granger, from a time beyond. I trust you shall do me the same honor.
I must follow him.
Sadly, he doesn't kick her as well, and so he stays behind to die heroically.
Because Dolph was kicked down the hill, of course he is perfectly fine at the bottom, but the Doctor jumped down willingly and is thus injured.
As the enemy are close by and time is of the essence, they decide to have a little chat at the bottom.
Because the Doctor is injured, Dolph just abandons her by the river.
And while you're here, stab anyone who isn't me.
And so the Doctor butchered every squirrel, badger and Girl Scout that walked into the area.
Having abandoned the Doctor, it's much easier for Dolph to sneak towards the Dark One's base.
Which also allows Dolph to introduce his new show, Extreme Cooking.
Undercooked.
He arrives at the base and uses his stealthy ninja skills to walk right out into the open.
He manages to sneak into the tent, but is then somehow spotted.
The Holy Mother explains that she knows who Dolph is and that she was trying to help him earlier.
Which leads to the dumbest flashback ever.
She explains the previous film to Dolph and that the king is actually the bad guy, if you couldn't tell already.
Your father entrusted me to save your life.
My father?
You are the King Before's lost son. You are our king.
So for anyone taking notes, I'd recommend getting A Sex Life instead. But not only is this film using the same Lost Child of the King story from the first one, it's also now got a family tree of Burt Reynolds being the father of Jason Statham, who is the father of Dolph Lundgren.
Which is awesome!
Anyway, she explains that they tried to kill him rather than help him because her bodyguard Thane just felt like killing Dolph.
He then tries to kill Dolph, only to get casually killed himself.
The old woman explains that 2 weeks after Dolph showing up through the portal, the plague will be transferred over to our world and kill everyone there, even though people in this world are still alive and we actually have medicine.
Back at the castle, and the king learns that Dolph hasn't killed the Holy Mother.
He was supposed to slay the witch in her bed!
Wow. Turns out that vague prophecies aren't facts.
So the Holy Mother dies and Dolph gets taken in by Dunyana on another poorly defined quest.
You shall enter the Black Forest and retrieve the catalyst.
Which is what?
I know not of its form.
Meanwhile, the king goes to visit his spy from the Dark Ones.
He talks with his hands explaining what Dolph is up to, which pleases the king.
My servant. Your loyalty will be remembered.
But your body will be left to rot.
Back with Dolph, and we learn a little more about Dunyana.
You remind me of her.
You speak of the Holy Mother?
Yes. I see now that you're her daughter.
It was my honor.
Honor, blind luck, oh, whatever.
Having known this woman for almost a whole day is enough for Dolph to decide that she should be appointed as queen in his stead.
So Dolph heads off into the forest, and soon after, the king shows up.
He decides to send his men to capture Dolph, but they're all too scared.
With your insolence, betray the peace of our kingdom.
You guys realise there's only one of him, right?
My lord! My 10 best!
In the Black Forest, Dolph meets a dragon until the Doctor shows up and throws a +5 rock of mild annoyance at it.
This manages to distract the CGI abomination, and they run off.
They manage to meet up and Dolph explains the plot to her.
Because I'm the king before son.
This cannot be.
I guess it does sound pretty silly when you say it out loud.
They run into the soldiers that the king sent after them, only for the dragon to turn up to save the day.
The dragon distracts them with some pretty pitiful action, while Dolph and the Doctor escape.
However, once they escape the forest, they're caught by the king and his men.
I'll take 4 of you pussies with me, and you know it.
Or none.
So while taking Dolph back to the castle, he then decides that he's bored, so he tries to kill them in the field.
Luckily, Dolph manages to escape, and for some reason, his pet dragon shows up.
The dragon attacks the soldiers, allowing Dolph and the Doctor to chase after the king.
Because they live in a world with dragons, they have no defences or indeed way to combat a dragon.
Gunyana realises that the dragon is the catalyst, and once it's burnt down their defences, they make their attack.
Meanwhile, we head towards our epic conclusion in Dolph's house.
Dolph and the king end up battling in the kitchen with a variety of utensils.
Oh, the suspense. Who will win this battle? The army-trained combat master or the guy who mixes potions?
Dolph slaps the king around a bit before drowning him in the bath, using the king's cyanide to top it off.
We did it.
Of course, by we, I actually mean I.
And so the film ends with Dolph reminiscing about the Doctor. In conclusion, I enjoyed this movie. The fight scenes are rather well done, you can tell what's going off, and are rather entertaining to watch.
Which is why it's a shame that there's only 3 of them. The rest of the film is quite dull and looks pretty bad, especially the king with his crown and tin foil on his cape.
Well, yeah, it's clearly a lower budget movie, but they spent their money well by getting Dolph Lundgren.
Well, yeah, but I mean, if he didn't have a divorce to pay for, they wouldn't have even got that.
It doesn't matter why any of them are there, though. It's really enjoyable to see Dolph basically play himself and not do any of it seriously.
Which is understandable, really, considering how ridiculous the plot is. It has an obvious twist, and then it just rehashes the plot from the first film, but is somehow less believable.
At the end of the day, it's just a simple plot about a soldier finding redemption with his doctor sidekick and his pet dragon, while saving 2 worlds from a plague.
I think ultimately, with its poor CGI and its ignoring of potentially interesting issues it accidentally raises, like the fact that the people Gunyana and the soldiers are slaughtering at the end are guilty of nothing more than being lied to, or potentially the fact that Dolph could have been the one who brought the plague back with him, it's probably simpler to just write it off as Dolph having some kind of alcohol-induced hallucination.
Yeah, what the hell? Exactly, am I right?
What is it really that is in your head? What little life that you had